Well, the time is just gone 11 minutes to 9 as we continue, and it's a time of the week, Crime Talk, weekly edition with eThekwini Secure. We've got Imtiaz Syed, the chairperson of eThekwini Secure, standing by. Imtiaz, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and I hope you're doing well.
Yes, now doing well. We want to talk about illegal dumping now. We know if we look at our city centers, and if I look at Durban, for instance, and the area where the Victoria Market used to be, Grey Street, West Street, and at the end of the day, when one drives through the city center, and even going into other areas, looking at places like Overport, for instance, Brickfield Road, all those areas, and it's actually a sight for sore eyes. And looking at illegal dumping, and it appears as if that is now becoming a norm, not only in the Durban area but right across the country.
Yeah. Inayat, when we speak about illegal dumping, it's quite clear for us that everyone goes by default to education, right? One part is the side of the community themselves that needs to be sensitized on how to dump, where to dump, and when to dump. Those are the major issues that we face, where people are not sensitive to the environment and they start putting out rubbish all over the place. But on the other hand, we need to really be clear on this, right? Is that the city has a mandate to manage the interest of the ratepayer. And if that is not happening properly, and the city is being used as a management company, then we need to start rising up and speaking up about this and say, what are you doing? On one part, is DSW doing their job in terms of street sweeping? And we must remember, it's not actually DSW, it's CSW, it's cleansing and solid waste. So making sure the streets are clean, making sure that bins are picked up, making sure that refuse is removed on time, all falls under the ambits of the CSW department, right? Now, if they're not doing their job, it's now, and we're finding ourselves in the situation across the board, whether it's electricity, whether it's general service delivery, and all of these things, where ratepayers now need to start standing up and start taking care of their own environment. Unfortunately, that is the dynamic of where we're going politically and as well as officials within the city. Now, the reason I raise this is that the ratepayer is, in fact, a customer of the city. We pay the city to provide services on a monthly basis, whether it's your electricity, water, and rates, and all of these things. The question then I raise with the populace is that if you were going to a private company and you were paying these sorts of monies towards them and they were not delivering the service, would you sit quietly or would you stand up, mobilize yourself, get everyone that's like-minded together and say, these are the things we are not getting? Now, this is what we need to start doing. If we're not doing this as communities, and we find this happening in areas where people and communities are mobilized, they're organized, and they know what they're doing, they start speaking to the right departments, and we can resolve our issues. Unfortunately, that is the dynamic and the climate of our country at the moment. Mobilization from community needs to happen. Ultimately, there's ward councillors and there's ward committees. I ask you, and ask every one of your listeners this: does the interest of the community lie with the councillor? Are they interested in what's happening in your community, or are they sitting there deployed as part of these big parties, so to say, and are they really doing their jobs? These are the questions we need to raise, because the councillor ultimately gets paid by you, the citizenry. We need to start holding them accountable. And the ideology of them complaining to you, we found it's become normal for councillors to come in and point fingers at themselves who sit in council. A councillor is part of council. They are supposed to be there to remedy problems. When in fact, when they come to you, there's nothing I can do. The city is like this. We don't have this. All of these excuses. Why is it that way? What are we going through? What are we doing? Is there mismanagement? And what is mismanagement? We're not talking about corruption. Let's leave corruption out for another day, right? Budgets are approved. Things need to happen. Why is it not happening? We need to ask the councillors this, and they need to start taking our plight to council. And that's something that's very important for us to do.
Well, Imtiaz, what you're saying is very, very true. And again, it's what you do at the ballot box that counts and who you actually vote in. We've got a situation where I'm living where the dump site has actually been closed down because of the lack of funds. Now, where
Correct.
do the people go and dump? They say use alternative dumping sites. The closest one is possibly another 20 or 30 kilometers from where you are. And so what are people going to do? is along the way, wherever they find a spot, even in the middle of the night, they will go drop off a bag or two or dump whatever. And this is what people are actually doing. So, once again, it comes to the authorities, the powers that be, and
Correct.
your councillors again. We find that this whole political game that is being played out, the political agenda that is playing out, overshadowing what people need to do, attend to the bread and butter issues that impact on you and I on a day-to-day basis.
Correct. We've always said this, right? Local government is where people get service delivery ultimately, right? Now, if we can't get local government right, then we're doing something extremely wrong. We need to start readdressing the issue of local government and see where do we fit in. Ultimately, it comes down to a simple issue. And like you just mentioned now, why is a dump site being closed? Why was there no foresight to understand that in the next 5 years, we're going to need X, Y, and Z? And why wasn't that a part of the budget? Was the budget not, in fact, sufficient? Are we doing things incorrectly? Are we not scrutinizing budgets properly? What are we doing? Now, what we also need to remember, is that politicians are not by default managers, nor are they good business people, right? They're politicians, they represent you. Now, when there's political interference in the HODs and the city managers and DCMs and all of these things, then we find that the climate of politics starts playing out within the city, wherein it's supposed to be service delivery driven. We also find that even within those officials, and ultimately this is what's going on, is that everyone has started becoming complainers to say that these are the things that are going wrong in the city, when in fact they should be pointing at themselves to say that we are the cause of these problems and we need to be solutions driven. And that is something that's not happening. When in fact they try to do that, we end up having meetings upon meetings about meetings to discuss meetings that happened in the past about what we can do about another meeting. And that's a problem. That's a problem. Ultimately, there are solutions, and solutions need to be tried. If you go and you discuss the solutions to its full format, you'll never ever end up doing anything about anything. So we need to stop talking about what we need to do, and we need to start getting boots on the ground, start delivering. The other issue comes down to labor. Why is labor in municipalities holding the city ransom in terms of overtime, in terms of salaries, in terms of increases, all of these things? People have a job, right? We need to, as citizenry, and if you are employed in council, start respecting your job. It is there because ultimately, by you not doing your job, you are going to make the city fail. And when the city fails, ultimately, you're going to end up with no jobs because then retrenchments are going to come into play. So we all need to start understanding the climate of how a city needs to be run, and we need to start moving in that direction as best business practice.
Well, you're talking of best business practice, but also when it comes to work ethic, and this
Correct.
is a problem right across the entire country, whether we're looking at it at a local government level, a municipal level. We just were talking earlier on about ESCOM, where over 5,600 employees refused to even declare that they had conflict of interest as far as their involvement with ESCOM goes. So this is a major problem, and perhaps at some point in time, we need to talk about work ethics at local government level and also people that are generally employed, because I'm sure, Imtiaz, there's a lot that you have seen over a period of time in this particular regard.
Correct. No, 100%. We see it all of the time where, and Inayat, I want to touch on cadre deployment. It's a sore topic, right? But we need to speak on it. At the end of the day, when we deploy cadres within their particular portfolio because they've done us favors during the elections, we must be clear that they have a job that needs to be done. So we don't have a problem with cadre deployment saying that jobs need to be created. But ultimately, when we put in people politically, we end up with problems that we cannot undo because it goes to an extent where it's beyond reproach and we can't fix the problem. Now, how do we go back within this city as eThekwini and say we need to start changing the attitude of people that come from branches of the ANC or any particular party for that matter that controls the city per se? So we need to start addressing these issues which are indirectly, right, destroying our cities unimaginably. And in the next few years, I can tell you right now, we might say that eThekwini is supposed to be a livable city by the most livable city by 2030. Currently, in the climate that we are, eThekwini is going to become the most unlivable city within the next 2 years. And that's a guarantee if we continue in this trajectory that we're going.
Well, just, obviously we've now opened up another area of discussion, but at the end of the day, it all counts. It's between you and I. We are the voters.
Absolutely.
We have our say. And when it comes to the ballot box, and this is where we need to make absolutely sure we make our voices count.
Correct. And when we sit at home and we do nothing, and like I said earlier, the ratepayer is a customer of the city. But when it comes to elections, the ratepayers are the ones that are sitting at home, not doing anything. And there we have them complaining afterwards to say that, oh, the city is being run, whatever. This is the situation we face. We need to stand up in that time. In that time when it's time for elections, stand up and place your vote. Don't go in and say, okay, the ANC has been there, the DA has been there, all of that. The DA and all of them are only there when it's time for election. And right now we're coming into that forum. Currently, 2023, 2024, you're going to see the political climate change dramatically. And everyone is going to be grandstanding and telling you how great their party is. The question is, what have they done for you? We have a party that's supposed to be accountable, which is the majority in the country, which is the ANC. We get that. They're supposed to be accountable. But on the other side, you have the DA, which complacently complains about everything that's happening when in fact they are the official opposition that are supposed to be the change makers. Why is that not happening? Why? Stop complaining. Stop complaining about everything. Tell us what you're doing about what you're going to do. Do something because you have the power to do it. Ultimately, there are smaller parties out there, but how much of power do we really have? We still have to beg. We still have to ask. We still have to question. And that's the situation we face with. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, the political climate needs to address itself. It needs to come to the fore in the interest of the people, and we need to start moving together in one direction as a country.
Well, Imtiaz, we're going to have to leave it at that as always. We thank you for your time. Great speaking to you once again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Imtiaz Syed with us this morning, Chairperson of eThekwini Secure. The time is just gone 9 o'clock. Zahid Jedwood is standing by with the news.